Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And episode 3, we talk about spine number 6, Beauty and the Beast, directed by Jean Cocteau, 1946. Now, as far as Beauty and the Beast adaptations, there's been a slew of them, and there are two that stand out to most people. This is, of course, one of them, and I'm going to talk about the other later on. What I like about this version, well, for starters, it's very close to the source material as far as the story. If you think you know what the story is, be sure to watch this first, and then, or actually even better, read the actual Beaumont story, and then you'll see how it plays out. So. What I like about this is its special effects, even today, is still very inspiring and even, dare I say, refreshing for someone in 2013. We live in a time when most films rely on computer-generated images, visual effects, and just a lot of very, kind of. Sometimes they're very, very detailed, but there is a difference between something that's done after the fact as a visual effect and something that is actually on the set, the actors interacting with it. This is like in the case with the father when he first goes into the castle and he walks into that hall and he sees the arms holding the candelabras lighting up and everything was all around. And that was a combination of just people actually holding the candelabras and shooting it reversing the film direction, so that instead of going one, you shoot it, you basically reverse the reels on the camera so that the end of the reel goes, you shoot the end of the reel first, and then when you play it back, it will reverse. This is something that Cocteau loved to do throughout his films, the use of reverse film. But it's still very inspiring to see, even if it may seem a little crude and primitive by today's standards. It's still very refreshing to see, and it certainly is. I don't want to say the pinnacle, because the best was still yet to come in terms of models and special effects and so on. But it's certainly there. If you want to see, if you're sick and tired of seeing CGI and 3D novelties and all this other stuff, if you just want to see, on-set stuff, it's really great. So that's one aspect of it that I like. There have been, you can find this. You can find this anywhere, but there's been a lot has been said about the meaning underneath Beauty and the Beast, why Cocteau chose to do this, and the one that gets talked about the most is that this is supposed to be an allegory for the creative process, and in fact, the items that the Beast has bears some relation to the way art is made. And this is something that Cocteau was interested in nearly all of his works. When I talk about Orphée later, I'm sure I'll touch on this more, but basically it's what the artist does, who the artist is. And you think, how do you get that from Beauty and the Beast? Well, I think it's something you have to kind of see in order to get. But I think what I take from it, as far as how is it a creative allegory, is the Beast as the Beast is, he lives on primal emotional urges, and there's, without any real sense of direction. I mean, I think he's aware that there is something higher, but he's not really sure how he's going to get there, and he limits himself, or he thinks that he's limited because of his animal urges. And Belle, in this case, can serve as a muse figure, as someone who asks him to rise above his his animalistic urges. When she eventually gets used to the idea, there's a little bit of a hesitation. Actually, there's a strong hesitation on her part. She finds him very frightening and revolting. But then, as she gets to know him, she starts to see, no, this is not a marriage made in Stockholm. And I get sick and tired of that excuse being used. Like, oh, you just fell in love because he was, it's the Stockholm syndrome love thing. It's stupid. No, it's. I mean, it is possible to see something in a different way, to have a different take on it as you get to know somebody over time. And but at any rate, so I think what's also I'm just thinking of the prologue that Cocteau wrote for the film. And basically he was asking for the adults to revert back to their childhood. And he points out that children will believe anything that we tell them. That they will believe that a beast will smoke after he makes a kill in his shame. Children will believe that a glove will transport you anywhere. And children will expect, and all I ask you is to be a child in this case. And let me say the 4 words that is a childhood's open sesame, once upon a time. And there's a couple reasons for this. Cocteau at the time, before World War II, he was he was part of the avant-garde scene. The first film he actually made was The Blood of the Poet, which I will cover later on down the road. And so he was known as very edgy and everything, and then it got complicated during World War II. He said some things that kind of got him in a bad rap with basically everybody in France, both the Vichy regime and the resistance. And to make a long story short, Beauty and the Beast was his artistic vindication. And what he wanted to, and by going this slightly different route, but still retaining his character, or what he was best known for, he was able to regain some credibility. So, but also I think beyond just the immediate circumstances that surrounded the production itself, I think it is best to look at this from a child's eyes again, and to go back to the simple child stories, and then with our adult sensibilities to be able to see more, and it does provide for that very well. So it's really great to watch. It's I know I probably don't sound as enthusiastic. I don't. This is one of those films I don't go out of my way to see like over and over again, and this gets into the other famous adaptation that everybody knows. Because I was not a kid at 1946, I was definitely a kid at 1991. I know this little adaptation that was made by this little known company. You may have heard of them, the Walt Disney Company. Yeah. Okay. One thing that gets talked, like when you get into discussions, particularly comparing Cocteau's and Disney's, the subject of plagiarism comes up because there's a lot of similarities between the two. Well, first off, there's naturally going to be similarities because they're all adapting from the same story, but even so, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, the most obvious one is the enchanted aspect. There's some other little minor ones. I mean, obviously the father being the prisoner is a basis. He was not in prison because for taking a rose. It's he's in prison because he was just the trespass was more general. Actually the plot is more simple in Disney's than in Cocteau's, and then by extension in Beaumont's. There is a rival love interest, which interestingly, that's something that I noticed in rewatching both, is the character design of Gaston owes a lot, I think, to Jean Marais, who plays multiple roles in this. He plays Avignon, the initial love interest that Belle has. You know, the man you know from the beginning is obviously in love with Belle, and who has proposed to her several times and has rejected it because she is loyal to her family, she's loyal to her father, and she wants to be there for him. He also plays the Beast, and he also plays Post-Beast. I mean, you already know the tale, so I don't have to worry too much about spoilers, so giving that away. So, but anyway, so he plays those roles, and actually, and I've heard it said that it was actually befitting that he did that because it represents both extremes and a moderation. The Avignon is handsome, and Belle knows this, and in fact, Belle acknowledges that she was physically attracted to him, but he's also a scoundrel and very repulsive. The Beast, on the other hand, is repulsive on the outside, or monstrous, or hideous. You know, there's other adjectives that were used to describe him. But when you get to know him, you find that there's a gentle and even suffering romantic heart. So those are the extremes, and then at the end, it all meets in the middle. So this is one of those cases where she got her cake and was able to eat it too. So, but anyways, but with Gaston, I now when I look at Gaston, I see Jean Marais, and I had forgotten that Ludovic was actually Belle's brother, but I see Ludovic as kind of a basis for Le Fou. Not too much. I mean, there is something comic about him, but it's not over the top like in Le Fou. But anyway, so yeah, there's similarities, but I don't like just because you can put similarities. I get very wary of assuming malicious intent on the part of creation, because let's face it, artists are constantly inspired by other artists. When you read enough about, I mean, pick your favorite artist, whether it be in music, whether it be in film, whether it be in visual arts. Chances are you will find something that will say that, oh, this work is similar to this and he was inspired by this. I mean, I'll give you an example, and this is because I just recently read the Wikipedia article on this. The Nine Inch Nails song, We're in This Together. The lyrics, portions of it, were largely inspired by David Bowie's Heroes, especially the line, you're the king and I'm the... no, you're the queen and I'm the king. Yeah, I have to make sure everybody's in the right place. Now, does this mean that Trent Reznor is I'm going to copy from David? No, it's very clear that he has listened to Bowie a lot, particularly the Low album. Low influenced a lot of the Downward Spiral, and he liked Heroes as well. So I don't accuse Trent Reznor of ripping off David Bowie. I mean, to me, what the difference between an artist that is clearly influenced by something and it's evident in his work, and a mere hack, or just someone who's a copycat, is just someone who just looks at the surface and just kind of does whatever because, oh, this is very popular. It's for very superficial reasons. Whereas an artist will, yes, he will be influenced by something, but then it's what you do with it. It's your own little spin. It's your own little take on it. What else can you do with it besides just the fact that, oh, I know this song, I know this film. And also, to Disney's credit, and now I'm talking about Walt Disney himself, he did consider doing Beauty and the Beast as an animated feature, but it was right around the time when Cocteau's film had come out, and he looked at it and he didn't know exactly how to top it. He didn't know what else he could do, because I think to him it felt like it fulfilled everything, and how else how else could you do it? And it probably would have come off as, oh, you're just capitalizing on this. And Disney himself was very respectful for, well, I'm going to take that camp. I've heard things to the contrary, but certainly Disney was in high admiration for other artists of his time, and anything that he could do to encourage the artists that he likes or the artists that he found fascinating. I mean, if you really want a good example of that, Fantasia. This is why I give Disney a lot of slack for things. Is because if Disney was purely a business opportunist, he wouldn't have made Fantasia. I mean, Fantasia was eventually artistically vindicated, but at the time it was not very well received, and it didn't make a whole lot of money. It was not the big commercial success that I think Disney probably hoped it would be. But he certainly pursued it because he had a desire to make it, and he wanted to do it, and I'm glad that he did. So, anyways, all of this. Now going back to Beauty and the Beast, I feel, and so then the question is, which do you like better? Do you like Cocteau's or Disney's? I will say that personally, I grew up with Disney's version for the longest time. It is what I consider my desert island Disney disc, with an honorable mention going to Fantasia. I mean, for me, what I love about it is that, I mean, and certainly what I take from it now, is the characterization, is the story of the characters, and I feel that is very well done. As far as characterization, it's the most interesting, it's the most complex and well-rounded of what you would find in most of the Disney films. Disney films, particularly the animated features, are often accused of, oh, they're just simple fairy tales. It's a Disney princess. It just satisfies the tropes. There's not a whole lot of depth or intrigue. And Beauty and the Beast is the time where I feel like there is a little bit more depth and dimension in terms of the character. And yes, I have a kind of crush on Belle. I mean, if you want to know who like my ideal woman is, or like who I'm looking for as far as an ideal woman, look to Belle. That's kind of, Belle embodies a lot of traits that I like. The cute bookworm, to use a trope title, but and she has that in spades. So yeah, I grew up with the Disney version. I only saw Cocteau's much later in my life, so I didn't grow up with it. But I can definitely appreciate both, and I see them as great adaptations in their own right. I don't see them as one dominates over the other. I think both. Well, for starter, I think both were made at different times. They were made by different people. They were made with different audiences in mind. There were different aims made. I don't think Disney was that into expressing an allegory about the creative process compared to Cocteau, but the fact that Cocteau did that with his and Disney was able to do something else with theirs, it makes it very complementary. It's like choosing between apples and oranges. I mean, they're both good for you. They're both sweet. They're both fruit. I mean, obviously you may have your preferences, but really I don't see them as one beats the other, because both do their own. They have their own take on the story, and they both do it really well. So yeah. Let's see some other things. As you can tell, these episodes are very off the cuff. I have some idea of what I want to say, but this is all very improvised. So there may be some things that I miss and such. So forgive me in advance. A few other little things I want to talk about. I haven't really mentioned so much about the Criterion-ness of it. I mean, like, for instance, the previous episode covered Seven Samurai. You notice I had the 2005 reissue, which was originally when it came out on DVD, and that was actually the first Criterion DVD that came out. It came out in 1998. It was a single disc. It just had the film and a commentary track, and the trailer. And yes, I know the initial pressings came with a restoration demonstration that Toho Studios wanted taken out of the disc, so then it got quickly reissued. But I held off. When I first saw it, I held off on it because I was anticipating that there was going to be a better issue of it. And then sure enough, 2005, there was a 3-disc edition, and so I got that. So that's what I have. The issue I have of Beauty and the Beast, again, it was also reissued as 2003, and I think reportedly the picture is better on that one. But one of the options that you get, and I like this option. In addition to hearing the original soundtrack, you also have the option of hearing Philip Glass's opera, Beauty and the Beast, and which was actually composed to play in sync with the film. And for a while, I actually liked Glass's opera slightly more than the original soundtrack. Maybe it was because it was a little bit more modern. Maybe it's because I have a bit of a fondness. I like Philip Glass. I'm not the hugest fan of him. I know people who are, but I do like his music, and I think because I'm used to that, I'm very familiar with his style. I like it more. But in revisiting both, and I actually listened to both versions, I actually like either or. I think the original soundtrack, it's great in part, but sometimes it has this tendency to be overtly romantic, probably more romantic than it needs to be. And it's fine. The music is fine. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just sometimes it gets a little bit too much for my taste. And with Glass's opera, I feel that it's the right amount of emotion. It's a little bit subdued, and also it's a bit more atmospheric. You get the sense of the atmosphere and the mystery, particularly whenever there are scenes in the castle itself. You really do feel like you're in this other world, and it's so again. I like either or on that case. So recommendation: if you love Beauty and the Beast as a story, you'll definitely like it. If you like anything with fantasy, you'll like it. Anything with fairy tales, you'll like it. It's great for both children and adults. So yeah, definitely check it out. Definitely, if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. And especially if you like those things, you'll like it. So, I believe. So yeah, that's Beauty and the Beast. So until next time, take care.